It's TK Friday and welcome to the Joy of Editing. In today's video, we'll be diving into Photoshop with the amazing TK8 plugin. I'll be editing an image by Testa entitled Village, Woman, and Dog. I've provided 2 image versions and PDF notes for you to practice. Let's enhance this photo together and level up your editing skills. Let's get started. It's TK Friday, and I'm your host, Dave Kelly, and we have an image today that I'm calling Village, Woman, and Dog. This comes to us from Doug Testa. Thanks, Doug, for the use of your image, and I have 2 versions for you, and I'll explain why in a second. And also PDF notes for you to download so you could practice on your own. And this is a great way of learning. So watch the video first and then give it a try for yourself. Now, here's why I have 2 versions. You see this box back here. I wasn't really a big fan of this box and some of this stuff back here and also this little bit of stuff in here. I thought it would be best if we could get rid of it. And now that we have generative fill in Photoshop Beta, I took this image into Photoshop Beta and removed these items, and now it looks like this. So I gave you this version as well as this version, just in case you want to practice and remove this stuff yourself in Photoshop Beta. So you can download either version or both. It's totally up to you. And don't forget to get the PDF notes as well that go along with this full edit Photoshop TK8 tutorial. I've provided a Dropbox link for the images and the PDF notes in the description right below this video. Don't forget to click more to open up the entire description, and there you'll find the Dropbox links for the downloads. By the way, if you don't yet own the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, you can click on my affiliate link found in the description below this video. Just click on that link. It'll take you to the TK web store where you can purchase the TK8 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. And if you use my promo code DK15, you'll save 15% off your entire purchase. And when you do that, you're supporting the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. And for that, I truly thank you. Now, as always, I started this image out in Lightroom, and I used the linear profile for this Sony camera of Doug's, and I clicked on Auto, and then I just tweaked things up a little bit here. And then I did pull back the vibrance and the saturation a bit because I'll be doing some saturation adjustments in Photoshop. So I wanted to take the image into Photoshop relatively flat. And that's generally the way I like to start, with a pretty flat image and then build it up in the editing process with the TK8 plugin in Photoshop. And the other thing is, under lens corrections, I always have remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections checked on. I did do a crop on this image, and I'll show you the crop. Here's the crop. I really wanted to focus our attention onto the subject. So that's our crop. And the other thing I did was I added no sharpening or noise reduction because when I got it into Photoshop, I used Sharpen AI because it's a low ISO image, got rid of any noise there was and sharpened it up a bit. The images you download will already have sharpening and noise reduction applied. After I adjusted this image in Lightroom, I just right-clicked on it and went to Edit In and clicked on Edit in Photoshop 2023. And let's go over there. The image is already there for me right now, and we can get started. I sounded a bit excited there. I am excited. Let's get going. If you watch TK Fridays on a regular basis, you know I always like to start out with a balance and contrast adjustment. To me, it's a great starting point. So I just come up here to the TK8 multi-mask panel, click on the luminosity mask button, and click on Midtones 3. Now, what Midtones 3 does is it protects the darkest shadows and the lightest highlights from getting clipped. Clipping would cause you to have no detail in shadows or highlights, so this prevents that from happening. Now, once I have the Midtones 3 button clicked on, I click on this button right here, which is your color grading tool, which I happen to love. So I click on this, and this will output that mask to this layer, which is a curves layer, but the color grading tool lets you color grade it very easily, as well as adjust shadows. That's the black block, midtones, the gray, and highlights, the white block. So let's get started. I'm going to start out with midtone, so I'm going to click on the midtone block. I'm going to drag this slider over pretty far to the right to somewhere right about here. When you release it, you'll see the effect take place, and you can see there's the midtone right there in the curve. And now I'll click on the shadow block, the black one, and I'm just going to pull it to the left to right about here, and you see how those shadows really start to deepen up, and it's already looking better. And then I'll click on the highlight block, and I'm just going to open up the highlights a little bit to somewhere right about here, I think is good. Now here is the before, and here is the after. So already it's looking good. And now on to the second step, and I like to call this setting yourself up for success. And what I mean by that is, I know I'll be working with the subject, which is the woman and the dog, and the background. And so I like to save those out as channels to help me in my editing process. So to do that, I'll click this button right here, which will select the subject. So Photoshop's AI will find my subject for me. And by the way, that button's also on the CX panel, which is right here. I have both panels opened up because I like to keep this panel always open to my TK actions. It's really quick to get to them. And if you have a larger computer monitor, you can have more real estate and you can open both up. And now to save that out as a channel, you click this button right here and then give it a name. I'm calling mine Woman and Dog. And then simply click OK. And now you'll see there it is as a channel right there. And then I'll invert it by clicking the button right below it. This will invert the selection. Don't get it mistaken for this button, which will invert a pixel layer. This inverts a selection, so click on this one. And now we have the background selected, and I'll click that same button to save that as a channel. And I think I'll call this one background. And then simply click OK. And now you can see I have woman and dog and background. And that's what I call setting myself up for success. Okay, so my next step 3, is to darken up the shadow areas. I think it'll give us a lot more contrast here, so we'll do that next. And to do that, I need to get to my multi-mask panel, but you'll notice right now I have the color grading tool in the way. Just click on this X. It'll remove it, but it will not change anything here. And then I'm going to go to My Channels. Now you'll note that I have an active selection, so I'm going to click on My Channels. And at this point, the background is selected. And I want the background. So right now I do have an active selection, so I could either use active selection or background. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to click background. And then I'm going to click the mask calculator button here because we'll do a mask calculation, and I love the mask calculator. If you love it, let me know in the comment section below. Hey, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps my channel to grow, and I thank all of you who do that. All right, so we're going to click X for an intersection, and now we can X out of here. And now I'm going to use a zone mask, so I'm going to click this button right here for the zone mask. And what I want to do is look for a shadow area like right here. I'm just going to click that and click OK. And that selects that shadow area. And you know, I'm not going to do anything here as far as tightening and lightening. I don't really think I need to because these areas are selected well. And I will be removing the subject from here. I may just tweak this slider a little bit to the right, to right there, 64. And that zone sits between a 2 and a 3, as you can see there. And now we need to make the calculation, so click equal. And now you'll notice the subject is removed from the selection. And now I want to output it to a burn layer, a 50% gray, and a transparent pixel layer. You can use either one. I usually like to use the 50% gray, but that's totally up to you. So I'm going to click the left side. And now you'll note I have a selection, and I have this 50% gray layer in a soft light blend mode. And now I will adjust my brush to like 30% opacity. So right now I'm at 10%. I'm going to type my 3 key. That's a shortcut. That gets you 30% opacity. And with a decent sized brush, I'll start to paint on my adjustment. And so I'll just start to paint on my adjustment. And I'm only looking for the shadow areas here. Now I can paint right over the woman because she is protected. I have not lifted my brush. Now I'm going to lift my brush and paint this again. It will not apply a full 30% down, but it will be definitely darker. So every time you lift your brush, it's going to get a little darker. And we're going to go over this shadow here. I'll lift the brush and paint it again, and maybe one more time. And now I'll paint this shadow area under the dog. And I'll be lifting my brush and painting several times like I lifted it again. And just keep painting away. And there it is. Let me shut this burn layer off. Here's before and here's after. So that looks really nice. If you Option or Alt click the eye, you can actually see the 50% gray layer and what you've burned, right like that. Option or Alt click it again and you're back to the image. The next thing I want to do is darken some of these shadow areas in this light area. Now, if I wanted to, I could paint on the same burn layer, but I like to use a separate layer because I may need to pull the opacity back. And by the way, if you want too strong on this layer, you can pull this opacity back if you need to back it off a little bit, but I like it up at 100%. So I'm going to come back and click on My Channels, click on the background, click on the mask calculator. I want to do an intersection, so I'll click on the X. We can X out of here. We're going to get a zone mask again, so click this button. And I'm going to sample this area right here, so click right there and click OK. And I think I can make this a little darker, so I can take this slider right here and drag it to the left and darken that up, I think a little bit more, maybe right about here. See how that darkens that up? Now we can tighten it up by dragging this slider to the left. And when I do, see how that gets even darker, and then we can use this brightness slider and lighten that up a little bit more, because we will be targeting these light areas. And now we need to make the calculation, so we'll click equal. And now we've made the calculation. We're not selecting the woman or the dog. And now let's output this to a burn layer. I'm going to use 50% gray, so I'll click the left side. And now we can start to paint this on. And I think I'll take my opacity up to 50%. I'm going to type my 5 key because I think I can be a little more aggressive here. And now I'll start to paint. So I'm just painting over here, and I will be lifting my brush. Like right now I lifted my brush, I'm painting again. And I'll lift it again and paint it again. Let's take a look at the before and after. Here is the before, and here is the after, and I think that looks good. Now I overpainted into here a little bit, but that does not hurt a thing. And if I needed to back this off, erase some of this, I could use a gray brush to erase because I'm using a 50% gray layer. If you were using a transparent layer, you would have to use the eraser tool to erase that. Okay, on this next step, I would like to work on the woman and dog, and I want to do a balance and contrast on the woman and dog. So let's click on the My Channels button. Let's select woman and dog. Let's click on the mask calculator. Click X to intersect. We can X out of here. Let's get a luminosity mask, and let's use midtones 3 to prevent clipping shadows and highlights, and then we'll click on the equal. And now let's choose the color grading tool by clicking on it. And I'll start with midtone, so I'll click on the midtone block. And I'll just open up the midtones a little bit to somewhere right around here I think looks good. Let's click on the shadow block, deepen up the shadows a little bit to somewhere right about here looks pretty good. I like that. And let's click on highlights and open up the highlights just a little bit, something like that. And I think I want to color grade the midtone, so let's click on the midtone block, and I'm just going to drag this to right about here. Just warms up those midtones a little bit. Here's the before and here's the after, and I think that looks good. Now what I want to do is bring out some of the color in the woman, because she has some really colorful clothing on here, so let's bring that out. Let's use saturation painting. Let's X out of the color grading tool. Nothing changes here. Let's click on My Channels and click on Woman and Dog. And let's simply output to this hamburger menu. Let's click it. We're not going to output to the hamburger menu. We're going to click on the saturation painting button inside of it. So click on that. And basically what you get here is a saturation layer that will only deal with the saturation. It will not deal with the brightness or the contrast or anything like that. Just saturation. That's why I love saturation painting. And this technique is kind of like dodging and burning with saturation, okay? I'm just going to do this all freehand, but I'm only going to be getting the woman because I used the My Channels and selected the woman and the dog. I should say woman and dog. I think the dog's a little oversaturated, and we're defaulted with gray. Gray will remove saturation. Now, it's very important to use a very low opacity, so I'm going to type my 1 key, which will give me 10% opacity. And with my brush, I'm just going to paint on this dog and just kind of desaturate it a little bit, not too much. And every time I lift my brush, I'll take a little more saturation off. So that looks good. And now if we switch this, you can type your X key or click this right here. And now we're on red. And now this is going to add saturation. So what I'm going to do, I don't want to paint on her face and bring that up. So I'm just going to be painting on the clothes here. And if I go outside, it won't hurt anything because, again, we're only selecting the woman. I'm going to stay off her hands and just paint. And again, this is freehand, and you can paint more over certain areas. Lift your brush and paint again if you want to bring a certain color out. This clothing under here, I think I can get a little more saturation out of here. And down in here looks pretty good. Again, I want to stay away from the hands. You can always switch over to gray if you need to and reduce the saturation if you overpaint. So this is really nice. I love saturation painting. It's really cool. Okay, so let's take a look. Here is the before, and here is the after. And I think I'm going to paint just a little bit of saturation on the dog's, face right here, or head, I should say, and a little bit right in there. I think that looks good. Here's the before, and here is the after. And I may reduce a little bit of saturation right here, so let me switch this over to gray, and I'll just paint off some of the saturation on her hand right there. I went a little too far there, so I'll flip this back and just paint right there one time. And I think our face looks okay. And if you want to see what that looks like, you can Option or Alt click on this layer, and you can see the saturation painting right there. Now, don't forget the all-important opacity adjustment. I always like to overdo this a little bit because I can take this the whole way off, the layer opacity, and then just start to drag it up slowly, and then just add the amount that I like. And I think I like it right around here. So here is the before, and here's the after. So don't forget about that layer opacity adjustment. That's important. Okay, now when I study the image, it looks like her hands are a little bit too light and on her leg down here, so we can fix that because your eye always wants to go to light areas, and I want your eye to go mainly to her face, not her hand, so let's fix that. Okay, so let's come up and click on My Channels. Let's select Woman and Dog again. Let's click on the Mask Calculator. Let's click X for intersect. Let's X out of here. This time, I'm going to use the luminosity mask to highlight the light area. So let's click on the luminosity mask button. And I ended up experimenting. And here's lights 1. Here's lights 2. And here's lights 3. I think lights 2 really gets it really well right there. Now let's click equal. And now we just have the woman and dog selected. But I'm only worried about her hands here. And let's output this to a burn layer. I'm going to use the left side for the 50% gray. Now, I probably didn't need to select a woman. I could have probably freehand painted this with no problem, but better to be safe than sorry. This is a light area, so I think I could go pretty aggressive here. So I'm going to type 5 on my keyboard. That's 50% opacity, and I'll just paint on here like that. And let's come down to her leg and paint on here a couple times and over here. Okay, just to tone that down to keep our eyes from going to the leg and the hand. And I think that's pretty good right like that. So here is the before and here's the after. See how that just tones it down and it keeps us looking at her face. Usually as I get further along in an edit, I feel I usually have to lighten up the midtones slightly. So to do that, let's click on this luminosity mask button. Let's click on midtones 1. You have midtones 1, you have midtones 2, and midtones 3. They're all midtones, but they all get lighter. And I just want a subtle lightening, so midtones 1 is usually the one to go for. Let's output it to a curves adjustment layer. And check this out. As soon as I click on screen, the screen blend mode for lightening, check this out. Here's screen. See how it just lightens up those midtones? Here's the before, and here is the after. Now, if it's too strong, you can back off on this opacity if you need to, but I think it's okay. After each step, I study the image and see what is really drawing my attention that needs fixed. And I like this light area here, but I think it's just a little too light, and I'd like to tone it down. So here's what I'll do. Let's come back up to My Channels, and this time we'll select the background. Click on the mask calculator, click X to intersect. Let's X out of here. It's a very light area, so let's click on the luminosity mask button. This is lights 1, here's lights 2. I'm trying to isolate this light area. Here's lights 3, and that really targets it. And now let's make the calculation by clicking on the equal. and the woman and dog drop out, and there's my shadow area. I'm going to output this to a curves adjustment layer and choose the multiply blend mode to darken, and all the highlights darken up a little bit. But now there's some color in here. This yellow, I'd like to tone it down. But let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after, but you see how that tones it down? But again, it's a little yellow, so let's fix that. I'm going to grab a hue saturation adjustment layer, click this button, and now I want to clip it so it only affects what this mask is selecting. So click on the paper clip for clip. Very cool. And now let's take down the saturation. So I'm going to take it down to maybe right about here. And we can also take the lightness too and drag it to the left just a little bit just to tone that down. Not much, just a tiny bit. Here is the before and here's the after. And that looks really good. And what I wanted to do is put this in a group. So if you hold your Command or Control key and click on this layer, they're both selected. And then come over here to the group icon and you have two sides, a black mask and a white. So click the right side. That puts this in a group. And the reason I'm doing that, because if the effect is too strong, you can take the opacity and it's going to affect both layers that are inside that group. So we can take this and pull it off and then just build it up slowly. You know, if I was too aggressive, I could back it off a little bit. And I think I'll do that. I'm going to pull it back to, say, right about here. So here is the before and here's the after. But it just tones it down, again, just a little wee bit. Now, I think I want to bring up the saturation back on some of these posts back in here, and maybe even on this wood in here a little bit. So saturation painting, again, dodging and burning. Not really, but it's like dodging and burning with saturation. So let's click on My Channels. Let's click on the background. Let's click on the hamburger menu and click Saturation Painting, this button right here. Click on that. And it defaults with gray, which will reduce saturation. At 100%, if you paint over something, it'll just go black and white. So it's very important to use low values, but let's flip this. I'm just going to type my X key to get red to increase saturation. I'm going to type my 1 key to get 1% opacity. And I can make my brush a little bit larger. And look, see, I can just paint over this stuff back in here. Bring up that saturation. And if I lift my brush and paint again, I haven't done that yet. If I do, I could increase it even more. I'm going to stay out of here. I think I'll stay off of that. And I'm going to paint on this green post right here. And maybe on this side of this a little bit like that. Okay. And if you want too strong, you could, again, flip this to gray and pull that back if you needed to. So let's check it out. Here is the before, and here is the after. And don't forget, you have the opacity. You can drag it off and just add as much of that saturation as you want. And I think I'll keep mine right here, right around 71%. Here's the before, and here's the after. But just a little increase in saturation back there. I think it really helps out. And I just thought to myself, hey, Dave, why did you go through this whole deal where you did the mask calculation? And the reason being was, and I looked at my notes, because I did end up painting on this door right here, and I wanted to protect myself from this woman's head. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint on that door like I actually did in my notes. See, now I can paint over her head and it will not affect it. Okay, so that's why I did that. But if you didn't want to paint this door, there would be no need to actually, mask out the woman. That wouldn't make sense. But if you're painting on the door, it does make sense. Now, I want to explain to you about saturation painting and how it was designed to be used with the panel. It was designed to be used with this button right here. This is the vibrant saturation mask. In other words, you would pick a vibrance or saturation mask, and then you would click the hamburger menu and choose saturation painting. I actually use saturation painting with my own technique that it wasn't designed to be used for. So let me X out of here. In other words, right now, there is no button here to get that saturation painting red and gray swatch up here. You could go into your color picker and get red and gray. But here's a workaround, and this is my technique, okay? So the panel wasn't designed for this, by the way. So here's what I would do. Do a Command or Control A to select the entire image, and then just come up here to My Channels and click on Active Selection and then simply click the hamburger menu, and now you can get this button. Click it, and now you'll notice I have my gray and red swatch, and I can do freehand saturation painting over the entire image anywhere I want. In my case, I chose just the background area. But if you wanted to just freeform saturate paint over any part of the image, that's a little workaround. That's a little tip. In other words, I'm using saturation painting for my own unique way of doing it, not how the panel was designed for it to be used. I hope that makes sense. So this is my own technique I came up with for dodging and burning with color, okay, using saturation painting. When you click the saturation paint button from the hamburger menu, it gives you a blank pixel layer in the saturation blend mode and the gray and the red swatch. I don't need this saturation painting layer, so it's selected, and I'll just click on my trash can and it's gone. The next thing I want to do is run a TK action, so let's click on this TK action button, and I'm going to try Color Loom. I try this on every image just to see if it helps, so let's click on Color Loom. And this is a cool action. When it works, it really works great, and sometimes it doesn't really help, so I like to try it in every image. And Tony set this up so that whenever you shut this layer off, you don't see any change. So he has, adjusted this panel so it starts out with no change, which is very important. And then what you do is you just start with each one of these colors. You have red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, magenta. And what I do is I just look at my image. This is just going to target the luminosity values of red. So I can turn it to the right to make them lighter or to the left to make them darker. And when I get to a point that I think it looks good, I'll just stop right there. And that looks really nice. And then I'll work with the yellows. I can lighten the yellows or darken the yellows down a little bit. And I just look at the image and adjust them. Then I go to green. I can lighten the greens or darken the greens. Whatever you feel looks the best. And this will probably look different than my notes because it's a new day and my eyes are seeing things differently maybe. And now we'll go with cyans. We can lighten the cyans or darken them. You can see some of the cyans down here on the, what do they call these things? Flip-flops, I think. Okay, so we can darken that. You see that, or lighten it, whatever you want to do. I'll darken it maybe a little bit. And then let's go to blues, and we can see how the blues are being affected. And let's go to magentas. Any magenta in here? Yeah, there's some magenta in here. And I just tweak that up. So let's take a look. Here is the before and here's the after. And this really helps out. I like this. So I recommend that you try it on every image and just adjust the sliders. You can adjust the luminosity values of all those different colors. We're almost done, just a couple more steps. Now I'm going to show you something that I don't think I've ever shown before, and that is some freehand vignetting. And to do that, I'm going to click on the curves adjustment. That gives us a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to put a black mask on it, and I will put it in the multiply blend mode to darken. Now, this is no masks or anything, so what I'm going to do is make sure I have an opacity, a small opacity, like 10%. You can type your 1 key to get 10%. And what I'm going to do is just do some freehand vignetting, just like so. I'm going to come around here. And remember, if I lift my brush, and I haven't yet, it'll add more of that effect. Go down around in here, up in here. I lifted the brush. I'm going to hit this, lift it again, get it darker down in this corner, under here a little bit more. Again, this is freehand, up in here, in here. So basically what I want to do is just draw emphasis to the woman there and the dog as well. So just like that, okay? And if you want to see that mask, you can click on this button right here, the double arrows, and we can see that's what that looks like. Okay? Again, here's the before and here's the after, and I think that helps. And then take your opacity the whole way off, and then just build it up slowly and stop when you think you got it at the right place. And I'm thinking maybe right around here. Here's the before and here's the after, and I think that really helps out. But I'm not stopping here with vignetting. I'm going to come up to actions and click on the basic vignette action and just click OK for the Gaussian blur. It's fine. You don't really have to touch that. You could if you need to. And it's a multiply blend mode at 50%, but I'm going to double click right here to bring up layer style. And then I'm going to take this slider and drag it over to somewhere right around here just to protect my shadows. Hold your Alt or Option key down and click on the left side and split this to graduate this off. Slide it the whole way to the left, and that just keeps it off the really dark shadows, and click OK. And now here is the before and here's the after. So that extra vignetting helps. And then again, take the opacity the whole way off and then just build it up slowly. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a vignette on there like this. Here's the before and here's the after. And I think that really helps out. And now what I want to do is go back to the layer where I did the balance and contrast on the woman. I'm going to click right here. And let's click on the color grading tool. Now this is important. I just want to lighten up the midtones a little bit, so click on this block and watch this slider when I click on it. You can see that's where it's set. And all I want to do is open this up a little bit more on the midtones to right around there. I just want to lighten up those midtones a little bit more. And I think that helps out. Now let me click on my vignette layer so I'm back at the top of the layer stack. And I have one final step, and I just want to do one more final lightening of the midtones. Let's X out of the color grading tool. And now let's go and click on the luminosity mask button. Midtones 1, just for a slight lightening of the midtones. A curves adjustment, so click on this button right here. And change the blend mode to what? If you said screen, you are right. So click on screen, and that lightens up the midtones. But that's too light, so again, I'm going to take it the whole way off and just start to drag it to the right and stop at a point where I think it looks right. And I think, I don't know, right around 79. Here's the before and here's the after. Just lightens it up. Now we can look at the overall before and after. Here's the before. We've come from here and we end up here. And again, you can go back and retweak any one of your adjustments. This is all non-destructive. Well, there it is, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this full edit today in Photoshop and the TK8 plugin for Photoshop. Thank you, Doug, for your image. And Doug, let us know where this image was taken. I don't think you let me know when you emailed it to me. You may have, but I can't find that email if you did. Hey, if you enjoyed the tutorial today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe, and don't forget, click that bell notification icon. You'll get notified each time I upload a new tutorial. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the joy of editing with Dave Kelly, and I will see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing!